sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different, even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning to you all our viewers, and thank you so much for waking up with us here on UBC. Now it is Good Morning Uganda. Remember, we do come to you Monday to Friday. That is from 6:30 to 9 a.m. and thereafter we have Good Morning Uganda Extra with Jage and Semakula. But we do this with also my colleague, that is Robert Priscilla, and myself. Now, today being the 16th day and Wednesday of June, that is 2021. Now, we must also make reminder to all of you people out there that COVID is real. And many of you have heard of cases, have lost people, or have been treating someone, or are still treating someone, probably also painfully are still grieving someone. Now, we must say that it is again incumbent on ourselves to stop the COVID-19 by following the SOPs. For example, washing your hands, wearing a face mask, stay away from crowds, do not be in association of crowds where you mustn't be. And if you don't have any reason to step out of your house, please stay at home. Now, that is it here from us to you. Please keep safe. This country and whoever relies on you wants you alive, and you're only useful when you are alive. Now, I must also say good morning to my colleagues, and I will pick it up with Priscilla. Good morning, Priscilla.
Good morning to you, Felix Nkunda, and welcome aboard all of Uganda. Thank you so much for choosing UBC as your preferred television network. Now, as we kick off Good Morning Uganda, today happens to be Wednesday, the 16th of June, 2021. And every single year, when 16th of June does come around, we are reminded of something that happened back in 1976, where we had a student uprising down South Africa in Soweto. And why were they uprising? Simply because they were protesting against the apartheid-inspired education that was in Soweto at that time. And the end result of these students uprising and protesting was that the entire lot of students was brutally murdered in cold daylight and blood, which sent the African Union and its member states to decide to start commemorating what is today known as the International Day of the African Child, which happens to be today, the 16th of June, 2021. My name is Priscilla Nalwoga. I was once a child. I am a child because I do have parents, and I will celebrate this day alongside my colleagues as we get to reflect on the African child, most especially under COVID-19. What is their stance? What is their fate? That's something we'll dive into later on. But good morning to you, Robert.
A lovely morning to you, Priscilla, Felix, and everybody that is watching us this morning. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. We're in a time of COVID-19, and Felix hinted on what you should be doing to avoid contracting COVID-19. But maybe sometimes also we should look at how is this disease transmitted, because this will also help you so much to avoid contracting it. Remember, this is a disease that is transmitted when droplets of a person infected with COVID-19 get on the soft parts of your body. For example, someone kwetiamulas, a face that now we know very well, and you touch those droplets, then later on you touch your face, those are the spots, the soft parts, the eyes, the mouth, and the virus will then enter your body. So how do you best prevent that? Regular sanitization, avoiding crowded areas, and also ensure you have a mask, then you're good to go. But also, Priscilla and Felix, there's some good news at least now regarding COVID-19, where we're expecting about 175,200 doses of AstraZeneca that will be arriving in the country, but that we shall later get more in our GMU agenda when we'll be hosting the commissioner in charge of vaccines and immunization in Uganda.
Well, of course, much addition to that is what we'll be sharing with you ahead in our show. Now we'll be talking about the plight of the African child also in our newsroom. But nevertheless, we also want to take you through some of the stories that did trend for the last 24 hours. And that will be Robert and Priscilla.
Looking at some of the stories, we begin with Parliament, where the vetting of the appointed ministers was ongoing yesterday. We now look at the newly appointed and vetted Minister for Information and Communication, Technology and National Guidance, Dr. Chris Balyomunsi, who was vowed to embrace teamwork in delivering national service. Balyomunsi's comments come after he was recently appointed alongside the former FDC Vice President Joyce Nabosa Sebugwao as his state minister, whom he expressed readiness to work with. Bearing in mind that his appointed junior minister, Joyce Nabosa Sebugwao, came from the FDC, an opposition political party, Balyomunsi said he is ready to embrace teamwork. It is this similar spirit that other ministers were also vetted.
Away from the parliamentary affairs of the 11th Parliament, we get to look at the agriculture sector, where beef, goat's meat, mutton and pork eaters in Mbarara City will now have to wait a little bit longer, as government has put a ban on meat following the continuous spread of foot and mouth disease within hoovered animals. The outbreak of Rift Valley fever lately in the neighborhood districts of Chihura that claimed lives also contributed to the ban on meat and other related animal products. No butcher in Mbarara is selling meat as of today, and the city abattoir has also been closed with immediate effect. Some of the meat dealers decry that this has been their only source of income. Now, with that closure, they will have to live a difficult life. Besides, the ban of meat in Mbarara comes at a time when the locals are also struggling to make ends meet due to the lockdown that has imposed on them in a move to deter the spread of COVID-19. They are now worried of the well-being of their families.
Well, that will explain the rise in costs of meat within Kampala or other areas where people and abattoirs are still operating. But away from that, we move to Muyenga quarry, where death occurred. Here, 4 men died on spot in a stone quarry mining belt in Muyenga, Sekindi zone, after a rock collapsed and buried them instantly. Leaders remained puzzled after they discovered that this quarry was closed in 2004 by then Lord Mayor of Kampala, Sebana Kizito the late. By press time, we found police had removed the bodies and were being put on a police patrol car, ready to be taken to Mulago City Mortuary for postmortem. Eyewitnesses and fellow workers of the dead narrate the trying moment that happened in the afternoon. Some of the leaders, among whom were councillors who made it at the scene of the accident, said how they are confused that this quarry is still operating and residents are doing business in this area. However, the chairman LC1 Muyenga Bukasa, Yasin Omari, expressed concern over reluctancy by KCCA and NEMA for reissuing licenses to a quarry for operation which had initially been closed. He said government should investigate this issue and the president should interest himself on how NEMA is issuing licenses to areas that were deemed not fit for people to work. Deputy spokesperson Kampala Metropolitan Luke Owesigire confirmed the fatal tragedy as the bodies were being taken to Mulago Mortuary for postmortem, but urged the public to desist from accessing the quarry premises, signaling more danger.
A report titled AfriChild, conducted by Makerere University, has spotted out parents as the main lead agents of the increasing child labor and abuse. The revelation was made during the virtual launch of the report, which led researchers appealing to parents to equip their children with life skills. According to a recent research conducted by AfriChild Uganda, 80% of the child abuse cases are caused by parents who have failed to equip their children with life skills during the COVID-19 lockdown that has seen so many schools closed as part of the measures to counter the pandemic. Many parents have exposed their children to mental and physical abuses. At the launch of the virtual report on child abuses, the Vice-Chancellor, Makerere University, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, challenged parents to improve on their parenting skills. The Commissioner, Child Affairs at the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Chateka Mondo, advised parents to change their attitude towards children. And the Executive Director, Africa Child Uganda, Timothy Opodo, urged law enforcers to implement the laws protecting children against any form of abuse. And that definitely speaks into the International Day of the African Child that we are celebrating across the African globe in memory of those Soweto children who were actually murdered for standing up for their right to education. Now today we definitely will be diving deeper into these rights of children that are being abused or challenged, especially under COVID-19. But before we do that, on the international scene, we definitely have some stories that also have caught and made headlines, courtesy of Felix Nkunda.
Now we'll cross over to international stories where we're looking at Israel strikes in Gaza after arson attack. Now Israel says it had launched airstrikes against Hamas targets in Gaza Strip after indigenously balloons were launched from the territory. Now explosions were heard in Gaza City in the early hours of Wednesday, and several balloons were sent from Gaza into Israel earlier on Tuesday, now which caused multiple fires according to the Israeli Fire Service. Now it is the fire major flare-up since 11 days of fighting between the two sides ended in a ceasefire on the 21st of May. Now it also followed by a much Jewish nationalist who occupied the East Jerusalem on Tuesday, which had drawn streets from Hamas and the militants group that ran Gaza. Now we cross over to Myanmar, where we see our only option. Myanmar civilians take up arms for democracy. In a weeks following the February 11 first, that's the military coup, Andrew joined the millions across the Myanmar and for a peaceful demonstration to turn into a civilian rule. Now, less than 2 months later, 27-year-old was training to kill soldiers with a wooden hunting rifle in the jungle of his native Kaya state on Myanmar's southern border with Thailand. Now, before the coup, I couldn't even kill an animal, said Andrew, who is common with other resistance fighters interviewed by the Al Jazeera. Now, I preferred his name not to be disclosed for security reasons. When I saw the military kill civilians, I felt really sad and troubled. Now, I came to the mindset that I'm fighting for the people against evil military dictators. Now, still looking at international stories, we're looking at Nigeria, where we see Twitter boss liable for NSAS losses. Minister comes out to say, while we see Nigerian government holding Twitter and the CEO Jack Dorsey indirectly liable for the losses the country suffered during the NSA protests. Now, the country's information minister has told a call-in program. Mr. Dorsey and the social media firm have not yet responded to the allegations. Tens of thousands of Nigerians took to the streets last October in protest against police brutality. However, they became known as the NSAS demonstration as they were sparked after a video went viral on a man allegedly being killed by a notorious special anti-robbery squad. Yeah, basically that's what's happening on the international scene. Now, a couple of stories we see this raffle between Twitter and Nigerian authorities, but also the Hamas in Gaza are not letting it down, but also again in Myanmar. Civilians take up the streets to fight and own their power back. But again, we do re-echo time and again that for all of you watching us from home, please stay focused to fighting COVID-19 in everything you do, for every moment. Do not forget to wash your hands time after time. Don't forget to sanitize if you can. Wear your face mask even when you're indoors if you have to, because if there's anyone who goes out to fetch to win bread and comes back, you don't lose anything. Anywhere in public, have your face mask on. If you do not have to be somewhere, do not be there. You don't have to move for luxury. Only move when you have to. Together we can actually win COVID-19 because God is on our side. Now, thank you so much for watching UBC Good Morning Uganda. We'll take a break, have a song for the day. When we come back, me, Priscilla, and Robert will be taking you through this very beautiful topic, exciting topic. Priscilla said she was a child. I really want to understand that.
It's the warmth of home or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
Prosper with Airtel Money today. Agent application and registration is free of charge. All you need to submit as a sole proprietor business is a letter from the business owner requesting for a SIM card and the purpose of the SIM card. Certified copy of Certificate of Registration of the Business issued by URSB. Certified copy of Statement of Particulars of the registered business and supporting statutory declaration in verification of the particulars. Copy of valid trading license. Copy of operational license issued by the relevant regulatory authority. Copy of TIN certificate issued by URA. Valid national ID for Ugandan proprietor, or passport for foreign national, including a valid immigration entry permit, work permit, visa, or residence certificate. Colored passport size photograph of the proprietor and handler of the business. Proof of current physical address of the business, tenancy agreement or utility bill in the name of the proprietor or landlord, or LC1 introduction letter confirming ownership and location of the business. You will be informed of your application status within a maximum of 5 working days, still free of charge. Upon successful agent application, Airtel will provide training and customized branding material for your business location, still free of charge. To register, call us today on 126 toll-free. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless. Airtel is regulated by Uganda Communications Commission.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning once again, and thank you for keeping it on UBC TV. It is time we look at our newsreel story, but we will not tire nor wither to remind you of what you should do to avoid contracting COVID-19. One of the most expensive illnesses to treat is COVID-19. Those that have had patients will tell you that yes, it is very, very expensive. So prevention is better than cure. Ensure you perfect the soaps and also take drinks, foods that boost your immune system, plus exercising. Well, today is the 16th of June, and internationally this is celebrated as the International Day of the African Child, where we saw children, young ones in 1976 come together to fight mistreatment, denial to education. Uganda is one of the countries in the world that has the youngest population, and according to our constitution, anyone from 0 to 18 or a person below 18 is considered as a child. Priscilla has told us once she was a child, and indeed she is still a child before her parents. Today I want to look at the plight of the African child. A child is a child, but on the African continent there are so many challenges. This year's theme is enhancing school retainment through sports, arts, and teaching methods. And this is where I want to begin from. Priscilla, when we look at the theme for this year's celebration, it has so much to do with the education sector. Let's begin by looking at the hindrances that the African child has faced in the time in the struggle for education?
Well, Robert, one may be asking themselves why the angle or the focus on education. It simply stems from the history that you have hinted on, that back in '76 there was apartheid that was heavy in South Africa, and there was division of everything, including education, and how the blacks in South Africa, or the originals of South Africa, were being educated vis-a-vis the education that the Dutch and the Boers were getting in the very same territories. And so these students one time just decided to upstage and protest against the way they were receiving education and the nature of education that they were receiving. And that is why today we have a continued celebration or commemoration of that uprising for students who are fighting for their right to good quality education. Which brings us to our conversation today. Now, while we do have children across Africa and in Uganda, it's where we are, they should be enjoying good quality education across the bar. Doesn't matter your social status, does not matter how much money you have, how much you can afford in terms of education. What is received as a child in terms of education should be good and should be of quality and up standard to be able to add value to this child who will one day become a contributor to the economy of any country.
So it's a right.
So it is a right. Now, as a right, we have seen that the African child in particular has had hindrances, barriers, challenges that have contributed to them not enjoying their right to education. Most recently, we've seen so many reports. We had the police report that came out at the beginning of this year that showed outstanding numbers of children that were suffering from early childhood marriages. You had cases that were highest recorded cases of teenage pregnancies. You also had a very interesting case where you had so many children now being engaged in casual labor. Because of the total lockdown, children were left to be managed at home. But the parents at home were out of the homes because they had to fend for the families in alternative ways, given that so many sectors had been closed down in COVID-19 when we appreciated it in 2020. Since then, these cases have risen. However, when students went back to school, those cases are reduced. But now we are into a second partial lockdown for Uganda in the year 2021, and we are already seeing this as a worrying thing. Now, earlier on, we did a report where they released an AfriChild report showing that 80% of the children go through these challenges. One of the indicators as to why these challenges are being discovered is because of the absenteeism of parents, guardians watching over and having full auto responsibility on the child, on that young person that they're supposed to be having an oversight in terms of education, in terms of welfare, in terms of social affairs, in terms of protection of the child at home. Now, let's look at, or allow me to look at teenage pregnancies. In teenage pregnancies, we had 6,000 cases rising from nowhere, highest statistics that we have received in Uganda. Between August 2020 and January 2021, we had 3,183 cases that were registered as teenage pregnancies. Of those, you had 1,619 as deliveries. Where's the balance of the 2,000 plus? You had 400 of those actually being prenatal deaths, giving stillbirths and things like that. Teenage pregnancies, we're looking at teenagers now with the challenge of pregnancy. Then you had the balance, either abortion,
so all these,
you either had them having miscarriages, or they had home deliveries. Now, imagine 6,000 girls in, by the way, this 6,000 is in one region, and the focus lens was on Kamuli district. So in Kamuli district, you had that much a number, and the eastern region, that much a number of teenage pregnancies. Now, if this teenager, this girl is
Priscilla,
pregnant...
these are some of the challenges that are a hindrance to school retention of the African child, most so particularly in Uganda. I want to bring in Felix. Priscilla has given us statistics and some of these challenges. But of late, reports are coming in that another issue that is affecting the African child, more so in Uganda, is child labor. A report by Platform for Labor Action, a non-governmental organization that deals with labor, indicates that now 50% of Uganda's children are engaged in one form or the other of child labor.
Well, on days like this, we would want to focus on the things that most pinch the plight of children, as you've mentioned. One of them was about the aspect of education, particularly talk about issues in terms of mortality rate and what. And now you bring in the concept of work. Now, we must also understand, and I think not to have it twisted, that work is not a punishment. When you look at the International Convention on Children's Rights, that is by the UN, they do cause specification of the kind of work that turns out to be child labor. Now, most recently, I've had a fusion or a mixture of things where we do get labor, work, and we mix them up. For example, we have had people talk about child labor in terms of kids doing homework, like homework, housework, if I may call it, like fetching water, maybe cleaning or whatever, the drills that people do at home. We have had some activists come out to say it is not what. We have had conversation in terms of chastisement, if you remember, punishing, beating kids and what. Now, as we discuss the notion of work, we must qualify it, not to just leave it bluntly. Work. For example, when the law talks about labor or the conventions or what you're referring to as child labor, in the sense of Africa, it is not appreciated like it is in Europe. And I would want even to start from just all of us here. How many of us were not engaged in some sort of work that probably even was financial at that point? Here in this country, it is pride if for example, a parent goes to dig and they go with a child. Today, as we celebrate this day, we need to deal with this misconception, because it creates a wrong attitude for the African child. Back in the 70s, or even before that, when you go to during 1880s, where we saw the first civil, the black civil movement, even in the US, their attribute was about children being taken to mines. Basically, it was about mines, even when it was in South Africa. It was kids who are used to hard work in mines, digging mines and what and all these things. Now, we need to redefine the concept of child labor in Africa, because for us, we actually pride in it, because we look at it as more meaningful than just destructive. I don't know which parent wouldn't want to teach their child to work at an early age. And that's where we need, I think, to do the lines. Yes, we need to re-understand child labor in terms of the African setup vis-a-vis the Western setup. When a child here doesn't work, they become useless because of the kind of community. Now, the Western community is different. A child is not prepared to work hard there. They are prepared probably to work smart or whatever. Here, we prepare children to work hard. For example, a parent will wake up in the morning and go digging, and their child must go with them digging. In terms of fetching water, they must fetch water. Doing the drills at home and what, and you know, all these things. Now, as we celebrate these days, we must re-echo the role of children in capacity building, and both at national level, family and society level. It wouldn't be fair for us to celebrate these days, this day, only remembering what happened in South Africa, about how kids striked and what. That must be modernized to form true verge of value for the most current child. And also to answer, not only talk about, like Priscilla highlighted a couple of challenges that face a child, that we must be able, as we celebrate days like this, are we answering the problems? The biggest problem most recent is teenage pregnancies. What answers do we have as societies, as families, as a government and a country? We must be able to talk about this question and find the answer. Why? Why? We talk about the pregnant teenagers. Where are the where are the teenage fathers? Are they by teenage fathers or actually by adults? we must be hard on to confront some of the, because it is not enough for us to celebrate days like this because normally, and this is where we have it wrong, that the celebrants of this day want to victimize themselves. The African child suffered a lot at the hands of the Boer. As you're trying to give the background, I think I had you talk about the Boer, the white man.
They focus on the vulnerability of the African child.
That is not necessary. Yes. We are past the 70s now. How do we modify the African child, this child that is from that background? How do we make them more useful, competitive on an international scene? That there will be a forum where a child from China, who is already an innovator, already in production, can share or interface reasonably with a child of Africa.
Felix, on that, how then do we handle the hindrances for this child to get to that level? One of them you've rightly talked about, which is early pregnancies, but you're also having early child marriages. We have laws in Uganda, the law against defilement. We have programs that we believe retain the girl child in school. We have all these, but unfortunately, every year the police and crime report will indicate defilement, early marriages, early pregnancies still on the rise.
Well, of course, as I've said earlier on, that we need to deal with these issues and answer the question, because now that is the question. Why? Why? But this question must be answered in a tripartite, that we look at families, societies, and government. Let's talk about the laws. The laws are clear. Marriage, the age, but it is not good enough. You get it? It is not good enough as law, apart from when it is actually enforced. But who should enforce the law? That's government. But before the enforcement comes, let's also talk about the stereotype behaviors in societies. Talk about the role of culture, the role of religion. That's hidden inside there.
Nuts to crack.
I mean, it's hidden there in society. When you talk about society, if there are religions who still pride in marrying off teenagers, when do we deal with that? Everyone doesn't want to talk about that because, I mean, it's religion. You know, you want to talk about the law, the government. But who's talking about the religion? Who's talking about culture? Culture. Now, then we go to the family. What do we have family values as a country? Do countries still have things they hold on to? But all this put together, there's also the role for the child. What kind of child are we raising as a country? Because that is a true indication of where this country will be in the next future now.
When Felix says that the role of a child, it actually, because the child, what we're looking at is the person who is actually practically empty, and it's the job of family, society, government to actually fill them with what they should become. This is an empty vessel. So the role of a child is to be a child. But what happens around this child is actually what will influence the character, the understanding, and the evolution and development of this child.
This is where I want to bring you in, Priscilla. What happens of late as we celebrate the Day of the African Child right now? We're having a challenge of social media. That the African child is faced with so much information, unregulated at the same time. There's so much that they are learning that they shouldn't be knowing. And when you look at this modern day era, this will increase immorality. Some it has rendered them even victims of some wrong-minded people. How best in modern day can we ensure we safeguard the African child on what they access, what they learn, that at one time will affect their reactions to certain situations?
Again, it goes back to who is responsible for the African child. Who is supposed to watch over? Who's the watchdog of the African child that we're talking about today? Kirabo, as you are there, who's watching over your child? Who is feeding into your child? Now,
the phone.
And also who's watching over Kirabo? Who's watching over Kirabo? Child Kirabo.
Child Priscilla, please continue. But of course, the laws are clear. If a child, under the laws of Uganda, anybody that is below the age of 18, because we know their sense of judgment can be compromised, even when they consent to something, by law, they will tell this is a child. So, clearly speaking, people under 18, laws do not try to be vulnerable. Say, I'm a child. Yes, you're a child before your parents, but not before the law and the country. Please continue. So there's no child Kirabo.
In terms of consumption of what the African child consumes, it still goes back down to the protection having to come from the guardians of this child. We bring it to reality. Every child, as of we speak today, especially in the urban centers, has a phone.
Yes.
Every child has access to whatever information, whatever social media, and the social media platforms out there are outrageous. Most recently, I saw a TikTok video, and it was a sexual-related TikTok video. And these are not censored by TikTok. It's a social platform, a Chinese social platform. And this material is not censored by TikTok. There's no PG-13, PG-16, PG-18.
Someone just records themselves,
so,
and you send.
And this child is going to have their phone, and it's going to have this social platform on it, and they're going to consume all mannerisms of video. It's going to cause them to consume all mannerisms of ideologies that may contradict with where they are as an African child, in the African setting, with the African religion and the African culture and the African society. So it's going to cause them to actually adapt some behaviors. It's going to cause them to adapt some sort of funny tendencies that contradict with what, you know, the African child should be doing. And in turn, they're going to end up becoming victims. And this is where you will see sexual uprisings in terms of teenage pregnancies. So many teenagers are practicing or being sexually active simply because of this uncontrolled exposure. Now, in terms of Africa, especially in Uganda, as far as that is concerned, we have not yet had a platform that has official policies and laws that do govern the consumption for the African child and what they consume, especially for the content that is now available on the internet. Now every child has access to the internet. It may not be the phone, but the cafes are still functioning and working. It may not be your phone, but to your cousin, the auntie, the uncle, where you send them for holidays, or where you send them right now because you feel, no, the children are a headache for me right now, let them go to Uncle John. You send them to Uncle John. Uncle John, it doesn't care. Yeah, you can use, and they will be exposed. But now, who's going to protect your child while they're at Uncle John is the question. That protection still has to come back to you. Now more than ever, parents have the most important role to protect their child from what they consume and how and where they consume it from. I mean, it's okay for the parent to inform and have sex education with their children, but don't let the rest of the world educate your child about sex education. Because
the information they may give. Felix, as we wind up, I want to have your take on this. That is how best now governments can come in. Priscilla has looked at the parent, that you have your responsibility. In some countries, even content displayed on internet, on the electronic print is regulated. For example, some sites, a parent has a way you can stop them from airing. Here in Uganda, we have a body that regulates content. But of course, when you look at even just from the decoders, we look at internet, it seems it's all left on the side of the parent to do so.
Well, for starters, before we go to government, Robert, I want to make this known, and probably for the viewers and to you, my dear colleagues, that parenthood is a lifetime job. And I want to emphasize that. I can even go traditional. Even when you die, you'll be wherever, you'll be hell or heaven, you'll look down on your children, and you will be cursed or be glorified for the kind of children you left on earth. If you give birth to thieves, the world will curse you even after you've died. But when you even give birth to angels or kids who change the world, you will be glorified for that. Whether alive or dead. So the word parent is not a word. You don't just play with it. People seem to take it easily. Say, the word parent, you give birth to someone. Ogwo mutango mu Luganda guli ku mutwe gwo. Mu bulamu ne mu obufudde.
So these excuses of you're making ends meet and provide.
The starting pill for discussing issues of children is the parent.
The starting and the ending. Because even if government comes in with the policies, who's going to enforce it? It's the parent who actually has to take
That's why we have been telling you. This whole business is government esomesa abana. Musomesa abana bamwe. Take your children to schools. Take your children to schools. Our parents paid for us from they put on torn clothes, bad shoes, because they knew it was their duty. Painful. By the way, for us going to schools like Shimon, it's not because our parents were, but they would they would squeeze in every form. All of you out there, people, you cardinal duty as a parent. Actually, your first job before you were whatever nurse, the first job is being a parent. If you fail on that first job, everything else will fail. Let me tell you, I have seen families that have become wreckage because of the kind of children they have raised. This whole hullabaloo you're in, hey, you are going to work for your children and they will not know the value.
They will not work for you.
They will not work for you. You had better
they will not work to make you proud.
And have good children. And this is for your own good, not for Uganda, not for your community, not for anyone else. So for me, today as we celebrate this day, I wouldn't want to focus on government. There's no government.
The parent
only
is the government.
That is there for a child is the parent. Remember, and this is spiritual and biblical, Robert, just 1 minute. There is no one they are going to ask, even in heaven. I don't know much about hell, but also it may be the same. But wherever you'll be, even Satan will ask you, what did you do for your children? What did you do?
Actually, Satan will be telling you, because of what you did for your children,
you're here.
You're here.
Well, I love that, and I won't add on so much, but I always say, please, please, as we celebrate this day, let's ensure that we fight all hindrances for our African child to shine and compete on the global market. I always say, children by choice, not chance, having known the gravity of being a parent. When we return, we'll be looking at what is trending in the papers.
Ekya COVID-19 kijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Well, every morning we inform, we entertain, and we set the agenda. So make it a date with us from 6:30 till the hour of 9 when Ruben comes in with the world of sports. Each time we inform you of some of the catchy stories in the dailies. I have the New Vision and my colleague has the Daily Monitor. Well, front page, a big headline there, Auditor General exposes rot in COVID-19 deals. Procurement guidelines were faulty. Oh Lord. Then still we look at pass O level in the education column. Today they bring you senior 4 biology, chemistry and senior 2 that is English lessons. Happening the approvals there. Cabinet Kadaga takes up ministerial post, and also still in the New Vision, Liberia VIP visits. Still we look at pension. Government earmarks 800 billion that is to go to pension. And still in the New Vision, looking at statistics of COVID-19, new deaths 25. People, we are not doing good. Just ensure you are not part of these statistics. New deaths recorded. This is a record. 25 people succumbed to COVID-19 in just 24 hours. Then we look at total death now as a country. We stand at 459. Still in a New Vision brings you people that were intercepted, passengers fleeing a taxi after police intercepted them on their way to Kimwanga Cattle Market in Mbale yesterday. The driver also abandoned the vehicle, seeing the cops who are enforcing the presidential directive banning, that is, weekly markets. Today in history, we look at this very date, the 16th of June, the year 1970, when appeal against life sentence was dismissed. And still on the same date, but the year 2007, hostages freed in Nigeria. Know your member of parliament? Today they have brought you, that is Isaac Sejoba, Bokoto County, and Muhammad Nsegumire, who is MP Mitiana North constituency.
Now also in the Daily Monitor, COVID-19, the price patients are paying. Hospitals run out of space for patients. COVID-19 kills 25 people in single day. Here are the do's and don'ts for steaming. At least 175,000 AstraZeneca vaccines arrive today. Now Miyenga Stone Quarry collapses and claims 4 lives. And of course, widow mourns husband killed by soldiers over COVID rules. Acid attack victims fails to get Museveni help. And 8 suspects in Tafile land saga released. Now inside the papers from the archives, we see here the then Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Gerald Sendawula, handing over a bicycle to one of the winners of the bicycle race competition there in 2004. Well, of course, also COVID oxygen crisis worsens in Mulago, and Beijing tells NATO to stop hyping up China threats. Now today in history, Thabo Mbeki inaugurated as President of South Africa, that is in 1999, and also Lincoln warns that America is becoming house divided.
While looking at sports in the New Vision, today being a Wednesday, we look at the women there, and aspiring female boxer looks up to Nanzili, who has headed for Tokyo, that is the Olympics there. Then big relief as the coach joins, that is the Crane 7 coach Onyango joins them on the way to the Olympics. And you're reminded it is 37 days to go, that is to the Olympics. Also statistics regarding, that is the Euro 2020 fixtures and results as well.
Now in sports, Daily Monitor, that is disfiring Namutebi's peak. That is the 37 days also to go for the Olympics. And Sentongo Chetume ready to die a little in a relegation dogfight there. Now sweet as sugar in Cassandra, but also Balotti, Italy wants to win Euro. There now, of course, Atalanta Hawks Los Angeles, cheapers levels, that is also in the series at 2-2 there.
Well, Priscilla will be taking us through traffic updates for you to know how best and how safe you can get to your destination. But also something very interesting. We look at the East Africa, where Somalia to roll out COVID data, that is unlock IMF loan there, and still more in the East Africa there, that is inside East Africa's recovery budget, the budgets of various countries within the East Africa. region where we see that of Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda. They give you the figures of what each country expects to get and of course their planned expenditure. Then we look at more in the magazine, that is okay, so they give you more of that. Let's see the movement of the paper there.
Now in the Daily Nations, we'll be looking at also collapse of the tyranny of numbers. Now, of course, in politics there in Kenya, they say everyone for himself as fractions crop up. Of course, there we will be expecting they will be going into the election soon, but we see a bit of a clash between the president and his vice president. But also anger as thousands miss Form 1 school of choice, and also the Kirabo one new, and the murder of Julie Ward's father, still hoping to get justice after 33 years.
Well, the traffic lady is ready to take us through, but we're also eager to know more regarding, that is, the tips, and I think she had something, unfinished business when it comes to how best we can protect the African child. Over to you, Afande Priscilla Nalwoga.
All right, once again, good morning to you, Uganda, and thank you so much for choosing UBC. As we continue, we're definitely going to be looking at the traffic updates. Of course, more and more stories will be emerging as how people are responding and adjusting to the district border closures there. And you must be very, very vigilant. And we ask all of you Ugandans to just be tolerant with what the forces are actually letting you know and how they're helping you do their job as well as do your responsibility as a citizen of this country. You must adhere to the directives that come from the offices above if we're all going to be able to survive and yet thrive in this COVID-19. Eventually, everything will change, but it will only change if you and me act together, lest we both perish for our taking no action to what has been required. Now, speaking of action, we won't echo it enough. Wear your mask, sanitize, and avoid crowding. Even if it's in your office and Felix Nkunda comes to your office and he's on your desk and is breathing down your neck, telling Felix, please, social distance, extend there, make your point, and then walk away. It's that simple, because you have to safeguard yourself, and most especially people in corporate places. You do work so much in confined place and you might contract COVID-19. The irony of it is that you're going to go back home and you're going to give it to your wife, and then your children will get it. Now, the treatment of COVID-19 is already expensive for just one individual. How much more the treatment of COVID-19 for an entire family, say a family of 4 or 5 people. Now, who's going to be paying that bill? Unfortunately, again, it's you who's going to suffer the bill, or your family, your relatives, your friends that are going to suffer that bill. And then again, there's no assurity of life. So protect yourself to protect your family, to protect your community, to protect your district, so as to protect the rest of Uganda. Now, we get to look at traffic, and we get to see some routes that are definitely having lots of issues in terms of management of traffic, especially interaction with the Kampala Northern Bypass. But I want to take it from Nankulabi this morning and see how traffic is looking like from Nankulabi. We get to see Nankulabi being one of the routes when you're heading to Hoima, and you get to use Hoima Road to be able to access Nankulabi into Kasubi, and then you maybe will interact with Nasana and the likes. Now, from Chimera Road does bring you from Makerere University, where you do have the traffic lights there at Sir Apollo Kagwa Road, and then it will connect you to Nankulabi traffic lights, which are very slow, by the way. I think they do like 30 seconds instead of a minute and a half. Yeah, so you will need a lot of patience and tolerance. So most of the traffic that we usually see on Chimera Road into Masiro Road or into the likes of Kasubi, it's not because there are actually so many vehicles on these particular routes, but because the traffic lights there actually give less time for each route to take precedence in terms of which direction they will be taking. Now, when you look at the rest of that route, which is Chimera Road, you get to see a little bit of jam that is on this route, and then you get to understand that because of commuter taxis that are on either side, that is why you're having a little bit of jam in this curve here. You get to bring it to Kasubi Market, where you would be expecting some traffic there, but today is Wednesday, market day is in Chibuye Market. So in Chibuye Market, you will be expecting a lot of jam for people who are interacting with Masaka Road, interacting with Ndeva Ring Road, interacting with Entebbe Road, connecting to the Chibuye roundabout. Because today is Wednesday market day for Chibuye, there's going to be a lot of traffic jam, especially in the morning up until about 1 p.m. when the traders clear off the road. Now going and heading on to Kawala Road, we get to see Kawala Road that connects into Kasubi, and you get to have some interactions there that are not so many, especially for traffic that is coming in from the Kampala northern bypass. You don't have so much except for a little orange zones, simply because there's the Kawala market. There's also the fact that some of these places are commuter taxi stages. They're definitely going to be contributing to how the traffic is looking like in this particular area. Now we get to see the Kampala northern bypass this morning. Doesn't have so much jam. It looks clear all the way connecting to Bwaise roundabout, and this is where you would be expecting some red into orange zones, but also it gives you a green zone all the way, showing you that there's not so much traffic that is being experienced at the Bwaise roundabout. Looking into Bombo Road, and this is traffic that is coming in from the Wandegea Kalere roundabout. There's also seemingly a green zone, meaning that there's not so much traffic that is in the Kalere roundabout here, and that feeds into Bombo Road, which is a clean and clear route for both traffic coming in from Kawempe, Bwaise and the likes, and trying to join Wandegea, and also traffic that is coming out of Wandegea and they're trying to access this part of Kampala using Bombo Road. Still interacting with the Bwaise roundabout. Want to have a sneak peek into Bwaise, into Kawempe, you also get to see that the only jam that you're expecting to see this morning is on the Naweru Road that does cross-sect with the main route, which would then be causing jam. And this is managed by traffic lights equally, and also funders that are there to ensure the traffic flows easily between Naweru, Bwaise and the likes. A sneak peek into the likes of Kawempe, which is heavily infested with a lot of industries. You have East African Seeds, you have Reham on this very same route, and a couple of other industries there. Also, the Kawempe Referral Hospital is on this route. Now, if you feel funny, and especially for the younger generation that is facing the second wave of COVID-19 that is being rampant, you may not get flu, you may not get cough, but if you've had a consistent headache, you might want to question as to why you're having a consistent headache. If you've been feeling generally body weak, you definitely want to have that checked. Just question yourself and have that checked. If it's not malaria, then you might want to do a COVID-19 test. So if you live within these parts of Kampala, Kawempe Referral Hospital would be the best alternative to go to, where you will get easy and affordable access to a testing kit for COVID-19, and whatever the result, you will be guided in accordance to the SOPs and the treatment that can be given to you. Many people are actually having home isolation treatment. They give you treatment and they expect you to isolate at home and continue with the treatment. Of course, there is the medical supervision. Because of COVID-19, so many things have changed. Now, even medicine can be done online. And so there is doctors that will be with you online to guide you, or in case you know someone who has contracted COVID-19, just help them be aware of this information. Now, that is what it's pretty much looking like on the side of Kawempe. We get to look at other routes that actually do interact with the Kampala Northern Bypass. From Naweru, it will connect you into Tula area, where you do also see a clean route in the area of Tula, and still it does come down to interact with the roundabout there, and we get to then come into Kalere. Now, Kalere, largely this area is having the Kalere market. On this side, you do have the people that are doing the vegetables, the fresh market. On this other side, you do have the non-perishables market. Very interesting strategy that they did there. So if you want the perishables, it's on this side. If you want the non-perishables, on the other side. But for the rest of the Kalere roadside, you get to see that the traffic is only around the market, but also simply because of, again, trucks interacting with commuter taxis that also have to make as many stopovers to offload and load people. That is why you do have the orange zone there. But away from that, past Total, you get to see that feeding into the Kalere roundabout, it's a clean and clear route. So if you go past the market, then there's not so much of a hindrance that you're going to be facing. Now, these two routes do connect with Wandegea, and you get to see that even a sneak peek into the Wandegea connecting route, Binaisa Road, is a clean route this morning. You do have these other connecting routes that bring in traffic from the upper side of Old Mulago also seem to be clear this morning. A sneak peek into the rest of these routes, you get to see that to Mulago roundabout, Binaisa Road is also very clean. Mulago roundabout had lots of potholes. But passed there recently, and these potholes are actually, they were redone by KCCA, and so it has actually eased a lot on the flow of traffic around Mulago roundabout. So pretty much that's how the traffic is looking like this day. As we continue to celebrate International Day of the African Girl Child, I think Robert was asking how can we actually protect the African child to be able to enjoy one of their rights that we were discussing earlier, which is education. And I think one of the best ways, especially in current times of COVID-19, exposure of these children is so high and almost uncontrollable for a child. As much as it's uncontrollable for a parent. We might want to put the burden on the parents, but they can only do so much because everyone is strained to the extreme. Now, while everyone's being strained to the extreme, you still have to consider that we must give life skills to your child so that they can be able to make the right decisions at the right time on the right age. But speaking of decisions, you still also, I personally would recommend that there is an increase in sex education. Let your child know about sex. What is it, when it should be done, and what it entails, what they shouldn't do. So that when they are faced with a moment and the little boy is confusing a little girl is being confused by a little boy, they will remember the conversation that they've had with their guardian and will be able to make better decisions. Also, reproductive health services and education should be more available and accessible now more than ever. And so community leaders, I think now is the time to actually task people around you to do the right thing for their communities and safeguard the children in your communities. Now, speaking of safeguarding, we did have a conversation yesterday with Molen Kenyana about a fever that broke out, and that is a Rift Valley fever that broke out. It has caused a lot of turmoil. This morning, we wake up to more news of an alert and equally a ban that has been put out, especially in the western region. A conversation we're going to dive into. Molen, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Priscilla.
How do you do?
I am fine.
Now, that is the problem.
I'm liking the conversation about the child, the girl child. And specifically for me, I want to also look at the religious part of it.
Oh, do tell.
Yes, because now when we talk about educating a child at that young age, especially with sex education, we need to bring in religion. And we cannot leave this responsibility only to the church leaders. Even us as parents, there are things you can tell a child and how to relate to the Bible, how to keep to their faith, that will also help them understand, especially with regard to what age. Yeah.
Well, you have spoken of religion. The Holy Book actually does make a statement which states that teach a child in a way that they will walk, so that when they grow up, they will never depart from that way. And ironically, this is actually meaningful for both good habits and bad habits.
Yes.
A child picks up anything and they will grow up to, continue with that very same habit.
And also, you see, some parents shy away from some of these conversations, but it is really a necessary evil. I'm telling you, even when you try to avoid it, it is going to come up, because where she is in school or where he is in school, they are going to come up with these things, and you're going to regret not having told them about it yourself. So it is better that you take the time, like I said, maybe have a reference to the Bible. Tell the child to wait till marriage. That is still a thing. It is something you can tell a child, and most kids actually pick up on it. But at the same time, educate them more on what is the appropriate age to actually, for example, have sex, and also what appropriate age it is to start dating, so that they are aware of these things before they hear it from their friends. because out there it might be a different narrative.
All right.
Yes.
The appropriate measures have been taken by the Ministry of Agriculture to curb the increasing rate of foot and mouth disease that has captured animals, livestock in the western region, to the extent that the district of Mbara has actually been cut off in terms of meat. Abattoirs are closed. There's no longer selling and buying of meat in that region simply because of what is happening around that area. How does this come about? Control measures. Is a ban enough to actually control foot and mouth disease?
I think that having such a disease come up and affecting animals, banning will just prevent the immediate spread, but at the same time, there is need for more measures, especially when it comes to control. We cannot wait until it has come up for us to now start making a plan. Okay, how do we control this? How about if we put these measures before? So that will be something that I would encourage governments and the local governments to also look out for. As soon as there are signs that this disease is coming, and maybe 1 or 2 animals, this is where, when you report these cases, so that Ministry of Health can come in and the veterinary department to make sure that this is only curbed at a small time, and maybe a lot of animals can be spared from this. And it's also good that, like now, that alert we gave out yesterday about the rift valley fever. Now this has come in time, and that is the time you actually start preparing and making sure that your animals are in good shape, and you also get veterinary checks. Yes.
Okay. So one person would be wondering, for the animals that actually have to be killed simply because they have this disease and it's uncontrollable, if they are killed, how can they be cleared so that they don't then get to affect the environment around?
Yes, I think still that comes into the health experts, the veterinary doctors. Really, if they are not posing any challenge, especially in terms of food and also disposal, then maybe that can't be a challenge. But should it be deemed that it is posing challenge in terms of disposal, or even for it to be consumed, that is something that you stay away from. So still, when the health experts tell us these things, we need to listen and actually consume the information just the way it is given to us.
All right, now you might be wondering why Molen and I are having this conversation, asking yourself how is it related to weather and nature. Well, nature is simply how we coexist with each and every single thing that has life within it, and that includes animals and plants. And animals, the livestock, at least in the western region, are affected right now, which then gets to affect the environment that we live in, or the people in the West are living in currently. Now, speaking of which, there are different forms of energy. We do have hydro energy that Uganda continues to enjoy. We have various dams that are being constructed on the different parts and sources of water that we have, especially on the Nile. And we get to have hydro energy then giving us electricity, which is a good form. There is yet another form of energy that has been on the rise in terms of consumption. In the last 10 years, people have resorted to something known as solar energy. Now, solar energy, solar systems, you now have companies that do sell you a solar fridge, solar TV, solar lights, everything is solar. But how does this solar energy come about? I mean, how is it made? Well, Molen Kenyana is actually going to be giving us details into the solar energy that we consume here in Uganda. Have yourselves a wonderful morning.
Yes, thank you very much, Priscilla. Solar fridge. I need to get my hands on that solar fridge refrigerator. I don't know whether the panel should be on top of the fridge or it's just outside supplying the refrigerator. But yes, that would be a good one. And what you're seeing in my background is one of the biggest solar plants in Africa. Actually, the biggest, which is in Morocco. Now, fortunately, Morocco has been on a rising trend when it comes to solar energy. Now, also, we want to take a look at where this kind of energy falls in. Now, solar energy is one of the best when it comes to renewable energy. And when we are talking about renewable energy, we are looking at those sources of energy that are actually not used up. They can't be used up. So that means, because now this energy, for example, solar energy is coming from the sun. We cannot use up the sun. So that means the source is always going to be a continuous flow. And also, when you look at other forms of energy like hydroelectric energy Priscilla was talking about, now also this is a form of energy that won't be, because we're getting it from the natural resources, lakes, the seas, the rivers, which means that this water is not being used up, or it refills as much as it is being used up. So that kind of replenishment, that refilling up that it gets, is what makes it mostly renewable and clean source of energy. Now, mostly, like Uganda here, we do have use of solar energy, but it hasn't been to a large scale. Most of the plants we have, actually most of the consumption we have here in terms of solar energy are domestic. You'll find that different homes are actually adapting to this, and especially in rural areas, actually, I will give them credit. There is a lot more use of solar energy, and that is what we talk about when we are encouraging renewable energy. We also have other sources of renewable energy like biogas. I'm impressed with also what Makere is doing. I was seeing a plant at Kabanyoro. They are having that biogas form of energy. Now, biogas is got mostly from the plants disposals, also from the animal waste, plant and animal waste. Now, what happens is that, like the cow dung, there is a way they have had to make it so that you can produce electricity out of it. You can actually cook with it. So that's a very good form of energy that I really encourage. If we could have that at a bigger scale, maybe like we look at schools where there is a lot of cooking. This can be one form of energy that is actually adapted because it is purely renewable, and that means it can, the source, there is a continuous source. These plant waste or animal waste products can actually be got from anywhere. So that is also one form of energy that we continue to encourage people to go for. Well, hydroelectric power is also one of the renewable energy, but looking at the processing of this electricity, yes, we do have a continuous flow of water, but the process to which we are producing this electricity should also look at sustainability. If in the process that is involved we are not polluting the environment, we are not, these wastes are not dumped into the lakes where actually we are getting this water to generate electricity, then we can consider it a very good form of energy. That is, if we maintain that sustainable plant of having renewable energy across the country. Now, speaking of which, we did have a report that came out yesterday that was giving us the statistics of how we're looking in terms of renewable energy that we have across the globe. Now, it is also important to note that most countries have actually not reached 100% going renewable, because seriously, if we see a country that has had 100% of renewable energy, this is a good place to be. Now, only Denmark actually has been able to move towards 100% renewable energy. That is in the deep colors of green and also blue. We look at mostly just Denmark, which has had to reach that limit. Now, this is actually here. This is the only place in the world that has now got 100% renewable energy. But look at West Africa also picking up. Now, this is where we're also looking at Morocco trying to move for that. But the rest of Africa still low when it comes to renewable energy. Take a look at Rwanda. They are also coming in the yellow zone also, meaning it has got to some percentage moving for renewable energy. Now, as far as Uganda is concerned, we really haven't done much when it comes to making renewable energy, and this is up until the end of 2019. We also have numbers that are showing us how much renewable energy, this continuous source of energy that are natural, something that we cannot consume it all, like the sun. This is a natural source of energy. So when you look at this graph, it's trying to show us how much solar energy is being adapted to, and that report is from 2013 up to 2019. Take a look at that orange yellow, that yellow line there. It's almost high in the peak everywhere in each year. So meaning that yes, there is good news. People are trying to adapt to that kind of energy. Now, there is also what we call wind power. Now, we haven't adapted much of this in Africa. Even in Uganda, we're not using wind energy, but it is also one form of energy that is being adapted, especially in the European countries and mostly the developed countries. And it is also on the rising range if you look at how the table is looking like in that blue line. Now, we do have the biogas power, that is geothermal, and that is just on a small scale for each year. So meaning that this kind of energy has not been tapped into and not a lot of people are actually using it. But I'm happy about the solar energy and the fact that we do have African countries now that are also starting to look at this as a very good form of energy is good news. Well, we look at production of biogas energy. Now, this is the energy I was talking about that we can get from plant waste and also animal waste, the cow dung that is available, especially when we look at areas in Uganda where we still have more cattle keeping. This can be readily available, and I would encourage especially people in the energy industry to also tap into these kind of resources. Now, biogas energy is on a rising level, especially we compared 2014 and 2018. And when you look at that orange line, these are some of the countries that are trying to move towards use of biogas energy. We have China still at a rising level, Vietnam, but I want you to take a look at Kenya here, our neighbors in Kenya. They are also starting to adapt and they are getting on a global scale. Yes, it is still in small numbers, but they are getting to a global scale. And also Ethiopia. Now, those are the two countries we have in Africa that have also adapted much of the renewable energy. That's specifically talking about biogas energy. So yes, we can also do it here, and still it comes down to our energy sector looking at tapping into some of these resources because they are good for our environment. Now, one might be wondering, why are we insisting on clean energy? Now, when we look at clean energy or renewable energy, these are forms of energy that do not affect our environment. Contrary to what we call other forms of energy, like the natural gas, use of fuel, we're looking at fossil fuels. That is also when we drive our cars, the kind of gases that are produced by using these fuels are the ones causing all the chaos, leading to climate change. So we want to take a look at some of the solutions that we have. We can't be talking about the problem all the time, yet we can have solutions. So that is why we're trying to relate the clean sources of energy versus what we're calling these forms of energy that pollute our environment. We do have a share from buildings. Also, this is now looking at other forms of energy that are contributing also much to our environment. Now, you look at the buildings contributing 30% of the energy demand. That means that on a daily, the people that actually use electricity, the people that actually cook, the people like in business buildings, the AC, all that actually requires energy is in that category, and that is non-renewable energy that is also contributing to 86.4%. That is looking at mostly the fossil fuels, 86.4%. That means that much of what we're using is actually non-renewable and still polluting our environment. So yes, the alternative is there to use the clean energy. And if we are able to tap in, like our neighbors, Kenya has now tapped into biogas energy, and they are rating on a global scale, Ethiopia as well. So Uganda, we can also do this. And looking at Kenya, they also have, most especially like, they also have that Karamoja cluster, and I think it is also one of their big sources of getting biogas energy. Now, also looking at some of the other sources that are getting us into this crisis of climate change when it comes to non-renewable sources of energy. We have transport, and we have always insisted on this, the cars that we use, the kind of fuels that we use. But take a look at what it is contributing. It is contributing 32% towards polluting our environment. That means the kind of energy they're using is actually non-renewable. Well, we want to come back home here and take a look at what our satellites are depicting from the skies over Uganda. Yes, this morning we did start off with a very big rainy system that was across Midwestern Uganda. This is where we have Fort Porter, those are the rains that we had this morning, and this system is still there even as we speak. That also extends up to parts of Ntoroko, coming to Kasese. Do expect those rains this morning across that area. We also have that rain system continuing up to parts of Hoima. So yes, there is rainy conditions in your forecast this morning. This was actually a big system where you see the dark orange, red, green, and blue. That is where we're having those rains. We also have one that is coming in from the Lake Victoria, extending up to the Lake Victoria Basin. Now we will take a look at our forecast this morning. This is where we have also the central part of Lake Victoria, that system starting to develop, and it will be bringing us some rains later as the morning goes through, but that will be over a few areas. Mostly we will be having intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions at 26 degrees. We do have the southwestern part of the country, sunny conditions for now. We do have temperatures at 27 degrees, but we do expect rains later as the day goes on in the afternoon. Now that is for central part of our country, Ruwero, Woblenzi, we have Nakaseke there. We are forecasting intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Temperatures will be going up to 27 degrees. Quite a pleasant morning over there. Now for Soroti, Katakwi, Amuria and Kumi, we are also forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine. Temperatures will be quite warm at 27 degrees centigrade. Now look at Mount Elgon Highlands. That is where we have Mbale, Bududa, Buko and Sironko. We are forecasting also intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, but temperatures quite cool at 25 degrees. Now looking at the western side of Lake Victoria, this is where we have the rain system headed coming in from the Lake Victoria. That is where we're likely to have mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, but rains expected this morning. Temperatures will be at 26 degrees centigrade. And also much of the country is dealing with mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions, especially across the northern part of the country as well as the eastern half of the country. But like I said, we still have that rain system over western Uganda, and also that could be dumping rains, especially moving in towards the country. Also the central part of the country might be expecting rains in the afternoon as this system is propagating your way. And also that system that is starting to develop across Kampala, bringing us mostly cloudy conditions, but we do expect rains across a few areas. Well, that's all we have for you in terms of your weather update this morning on weather and nature. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Molly Kenyana. We still have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up and more programming you would want to stick around. You can also follow us on our Twitter handles, and we are also streaming live on YouTube. Have a good morning.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by authentically symbolic and insightful.
We should work so hard to evacuate this power.
Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odong Top, was brought to you by...
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Digital Tracking Solution. The Digital Tracking Solution, DTS, is used by both local manufacturers and importers of products specified by Commissioner in a gazetted notice. It is compulsory for these taxpayers to apply tax stamps.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Cha COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
Therefore, understanding this model. Hey, excuse me, lady. Who do you think you are? A queen?
Hey, haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Ginger Tea drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda, and thank you so much for keeping it on UBC TV. Once again, I'm Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono. Now, we're in the second wave of COVID-19, and we remember what the first wave was like. The second wave is more dangerous, we've registered more death, and I was discussing with my colleagues that never in the history of Uganda in the fight against COVID-19, in 24 hours, have we ever registered 25 deaths in this country. And remember, those are what is captured. Maybe we could have some deaths that are not captured due to COVID-19. But our hope, His Excellency has already said, lies so much from perfecting the soaps in immunization. Now with me in studios, I have the Assistant Commissioner, Minister of Health, in charge of vaccines and immunization, Dr. Alfred Duruware, with whom we are going to be discussing issues regarding vaccination and updates. Doctor, you're most welcome to our studios.
Thank you, Nyonyintono. This is the first time I've heard that name from you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, first I want you to explain or give us a brief on what a vaccine is. Just throw more light and shape our discussion for today.
So, simply put, a vaccine is a product which is derived from a disease-causing agent, a product which is safe, and when you deliver it to a person, the body's defense system, the body's immunity, will recognize that particle and prepare itself to deal with that particle again. So it primes the body to be ready for a better fight, so that when the actual bacteria or virus comes in, the body is in a better position to fight back. Now it's like someone who has a gun in the store and another one who has his gun on the waist. When you are confronted by an enemy, the one who has a gun in the waist is in a better position to defend himself than the one whose gun is in the stores. So a person who is not immunized is like that man whose gun is in the store. The one who's vaccinated is like the one whose gun is on his waist. So that when the enemy comes, instead of running to the store, this one is ready to respond. So vaccines prepare us to be ready to fight any infection of that agent against which you are vaccinated. So when you are vaccinated against the COVID-19, your body is prepared to be on alert so that when you get the actual infection after vaccination, your body is starting not from 0, it is starting from 10 to fight the disease. So what it means is that it will not give chance, your body will not give chance for the virus to establish itself, to damage your organs. Because once the virus is introduced in the body is ready to fight it. So it keeps the numbers low and overwhelms the virus and even clears it without it having to cause symptoms for some people, without it having to form severe disease, and also without it having to cause death. So that is the benefit. Vaccine is a product which is given to your body to prepare itself to fight better when you are invaded by the actual disease-causing agent.
Well, today we are expecting to receive 175,200 doses of AstraZeneca will be coming into this country. And our hope, like Doctor put it, is through vaccination, where we know we'll fight severe illness and death. Doctor, we had the first bunch arrive. People were vaccinated. It had priority groups, the vulnerable groups, the health workers and all that mentioned that many Ugandans now know. Let's look at this second bunch that is arriving. Who are the priority groups? Is it for everybody or is it specifically targeting some group?
Now, let me explain it this way. The priority groups we are targeting with the scarce resources, with the few doses of COVID-19 vaccines, total up to 5 million people. So out of these 5 million people, the doses we received were 964,000. So it means majority of the people in this priority group were not reached. Second, the dose we are using is AstraZeneca, which requires 2 doses. So it means the people whom were vaccinated with the initial doses of AstraZeneca, they are in need of second doses. And if you can hear the last presidential address, the priority group, the priority of the priority group will be those who are due for their second dose. You may remember that we have about 300,000 people who are due for their second dose after 3 months. So out of this number, we have so far vaccinated 60,000. That leaves us with a balance of about 240,000. So out of 240,000, we now have 175,200. So what it means is that even the doses we are receiving are not enough for those who are due for second dose after 3 months. So we will still have to prioritize. So this answers the question Are we going to prioritize or not? Yes, we are going to prioritize, and we are even going to prioritize further those who are due for their second dose.
So this makes it clear that this consignment is targeting those that are due to receive their second dose. That is a period of 12 weeks?
12 weeks.
12 weeks. Yeah. Then what happens to the rest that would want to be vaccinated? Earlier, people were reluctant, but with the statistics, the rates of infection and death, Ugandans are eager to get vaccinated.
So remember, our target for COVID-19 vaccination is 22 million people from the age 18 and above. These are people who should be vaccinated. But we picked more vulnerable people amounting to 5 million. So what it means is that to cover all those who deserve to be vaccinated, we will take a longer time because we need more vaccines, and also the stocks of vaccines globally are not as readily available as we would wish. So the caveat I would like to emphasize here is the SOPs will remain our mainstay of response. Vaccines will come as the fourth layer of protection. So the hand washing, avoiding touching the soft parts, as His Excellency prefers calling them, social distancing, and wearing a mask. These will remain with us for a longer time, and indeed, even after vaccination, where majority of the people are not vaccinated, and where we're having a second wave, whether you're vaccinated or not, you must continue wearing your masks. Just me, I'm fully vaccinated, but I continue wearing the mask in spite of the social distance we have. So this is, again, the call for every citizen to take their lives in their hands and exercise self-restraint and responsibility for themselves and for their loved ones. This is the mainstay, because the vaccines are going to come into the country in small quantities, no doubt about that, and the vaccination program will run for a longer time, no doubt about that. And what is going to change the course of this epidemic are the modifications we put to our behavior. So when we say social distancing, how do you execute it? It means you need to avoid circumstances which puts you close to other people. So if you are going into the market, how far do you need to go to other people? And I've seen supermarkets that are doing a very good job. Most of them have even introduced the barriers inside. Many shops, they have put barriers outside, say, what do you want? So that many people do not keep coming into your shop, and leave droplets there. So those are now modifications of those principles of social distancing. Social distancing means nothing. It's until we now translate this into our own settings. I've seen people, instead of sitting in closed rooms, they prefer to sit outside. Meetings outside. I've gone for meetings to other institutions. The meetings are held under a tree. So those are all principles.
Where there is proper air circulation.
There's proper air circulation. You sit in an open environment as opposed to in a closed environment for a very long time. And instead of seeing people in my office, I would rather sit them in the boardroom where the room is wider, and we spend a shorter time, and I go back to my office and sit for a longer time alone. So these are modifications you now need to apply yourself to and say, what is it? How can I ensure the social distancing in my workplace, in my life?
Doctor, when we look at the first phase of vaccination in this country, we find that there were challenges of lack of information and as well as misinformation. At one point, we almost thought we would not be able to utilize all the vaccines we have. because people are not complying or people are not taking these vaccinations. Now we want to look at some of the unanswered questions, some of what we call them myth, rumors that are surrounding vaccination. And now that they're expert with us, we want to clarify on some of these. First is one should be tested before getting vaccinated. Please throw more light. We've seen so many people, many speakers coming out and saying, please, before you get the vaccination or your second dose, please first carry out a test. How necessary? How true?
Now, I think it's not true that this kind of information gets to the public through unofficial channels. First of all, we do not take decisions unilaterally. You see, there is no body, no organization which associates itself with these positions. These are individuals who have strong feelings, they take a position, they want to influence society. And therefore, it does not even make any public health sense. Now let me explain. Vaccine, if you have ever tested in town for COVID-19, you will spend not less than 200,000 shillings. If you go to the government facilities and you test, you may test for free. But it is free because someone has met the cost. And it is you who has met the cost through your taxes. So someone is meeting that cost. And it is 250 or 350,000 shillings. The vaccine will cost you about 15,000 shillings. And if you get it free, it's because someone has met the cost. Now, if you want to test everybody before vaccinating them, in that effort, you'll spend much, much, much more money, to an extent that you may not have the money you require for buying a vaccine. Because remember, you would have to test 22 million people. You will have to then vaccinate them. Also remember that science tells us if you vaccinate someone regardless of testing, there are no consequences. There are no consequences because the vaccine is safe, and it is also because the vaccine is not a therapeutic vaccine. It is a vaccine which works on your body immune system, and if you are infected before, it will only be a booster, because this one doesn't cause disease, but it challenges the immune system, as opposed to the immune system being challenged by the disease agent itself. So it does not make, therefore, any public health sense to test. And these options have been discussed globally, and the agreed position is we can test, we can vaccinate without testing. Now, let me explain again where this confusion is coming from.
Yeah, because that's what I wanted to ask, that we've had people claim that after vaccination, then they believe they contracted COVID-19.
Well, this is part two. I think the confusion is coming from hepatitis testing. You know, when we are vaccinating against the hepatitis, the adult program, we test first, and we vaccinate you when you are negative. And this is where the confusion is coming from for some people. We test for hepatitis B before vaccinating because hepatitis is a chronic disease. You can stay with the hepatitis infection for 25 years without any symptoms if you have recovered from the primary infection. So you can live with the chronic disease for a longer time. So why are we testing? The objective of testing is not driven by the vaccination requirement. We want to identify the people who are infected so that they are pulled out for further investigation and treatment.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you are chronically infected, your liver is silently being damaged, and we vaccinate you, it will be like it is end of the story. But we want to know whether you are positive. Once you are put positive, a vaccine will not be the one to help you. What will help you is treatment. So we pick you out for treatment. So that is why we test for hepatitis, and we don't test for COVID, because COVID is an acute disease. Once you get infected with COVID, the body has the ability to fight it if you survive within 2 weeks. So there is no chronicity. So even if you were infected, the vaccine does not cause a disease, but instead it will boost
immunity.
Now let's go to the question you are asking.
Yes.
That somebody was vaccinated and got infected. Now let's look at it this way. If you get vaccinated today, the vaccine does not start protecting you today, because your body needs time to amplify the immune system to be able to respond. So there is a lead time of about 2 weeks. For some people, 3 weeks, within which the body requires to prepare itself to be able to defend you. So what does this mean? It means if you have infected a week earlier than you were vaccinated, that disease can go unchecked and manifests itself after you are vaccinated. So number one is the case of infections preceding vaccination, or infections within 2 weeks when your body is still making use of these vaccines. This is part one. Part two, all the vaccines we are using, nobody has claimed that they are 100% effective. 100, no. So if it's not 100%, let's say 80% effective, what does it mean? It will not be effective on 20%. You see the point? So it means 20 people out of 100
yes,
who are vaccinated may not benefit from the vaccination effect as the other 80.
Will they have severe illnesses, but will they also succumb?
It is possible, depending on how effective, because if the way their body reacts is, others will be, let's say, 80% capacity, 50% capacity, 30% capacity. They can still progress to have severe disease. But these are fewer people than the majority. I think that's the main point. The main point is majority of the people who are being vaccinated will be protected. And by the way, this is not only with the COVID-19. Even measles vaccine, which is almost removing measles, is 85% effective. You remember when we did the measles rubella campaign? Many parents were saying, I vaccinated my child. How come he's getting
these symptoms?
So it's just like beans in a pot. Others cook, they burst open, while you find another bean seed, which is not cooked, in that same pot. You say, where was this one? So these are variations which are expected. There are people who will be vaccinated. They will still have the disease. They may still develop severe disease, but these are fewer people compared to the majority of the people. So if you make a conclusion based on this observation, you will be completely wrong, because the vaccines protect majority of the people.
Well, I'm still with Dr. Alfred Ruware, who is the Assistant Commissioner in charge of Vaccines and Immunization at the Ministry of Health, but also the Program Manager for the Uganda National Expanded Program on Immunization. Now, Doctor, that the second bunch is coming in, Let's also look at how it's going to be rolled out. Is it going to be centralized? Are districts going to be getting? How is the distribution exercise going to be carried out?
So we are, first of all, equity is one of the key principles which governs our service delivery. Equity in the sense that regardless of where you are in Uganda, you should not suffer a disadvantage. And in that way, when we're providing services, we look at districts. And you know that everybody lives in a district. And when you reach in a district, everybody lives in a sub-county. So our service design, the health system design, is in such a way that regardless of where you stay, services will reach you. So we are going to cover the whole country because the people who are due for second doses, I said, are spread all over the country. That's step number one. Step number two, we are going to modify the approach. We had a routine approach to the immunization exercise with the initial doses. And this dragged on and on and on. And this dragging of the immunization program is very expensive, and it also makes our tracking of resources not very effective. So we are going to adopt a model like what we did like Kololo. We will organize people to go to specific places, fewer places which are managed, so that we are able to say these number of doses were issued out, these numbers of people were vaccinated, this is the balance, and we reconcile, we account, and we will be accounting on day-to-day basis. So we are working the details out, and these details will be out by today or tomorrow, so that now when we issue the vaccines, we will issue them with specific instructions. But as a matter of principle, we are going to adopt a kind of approach similar to a campaign mode at the district level and also KCCA. So in this way, the activity, doses which arrive into the country should be exhausted in a limited period of time so that you start counting for everybody. You can see less than 1 million doses, we spread them over 3 months. Some people are still 3 weeks with their vaccination. Yes. Others are already 3 months. So this it creates confusion, and we are going to move in a more systematic manner with these doses. So everybody will get from wherever they are.
I love that because it will effective tracking and also people knowing when they are due. Because if you're looking at this bunch now, for those that got their first dose, you'll find that some are in 4 weeks, others are in 7 weeks, others. So that complication really in tracking will be had. But doctor, in the interest of time, let me have your final remarks regarding vaccination and, of course, protection against the spread of COVID-19.
Now, an old person one time told me that there is no shortcut to a place worth going. I've observed with concern that there are people who want to get vaccines from ungazetted locations. The places where we vaccinate in a district are known. They are open, they are public places, but those kinds of vaccination locations which are in private locations and which involve money are illegal.
How do vaccines get there then?
And I'm talking to the Ugandans now. We issue vaccines to official locations. The vaccines are free, and they are provided in locations which are known by everybody. Those secretive locations of vaccination, which are at cost, could put your life at risk. And we also want to warn people who are trying to con the public that they have vaccines, and there will be consequences for those who are doing that. And I just want to leave it at that, and the public should be warned that we are going to announce places where vaccines are going to be. Please go and vaccinate yourself in those public locations.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Alfred Duruware, who is the State Commissioner, Ministry of Health, in charge of vaccines and immunization, but also the program that is manager, Uganda National Expanded Program on Immunization, for always honoring our invitation and come to serve Ugandans. You've heard it from the expert. Please, the vaccines are safe. Go and get your second jab for those that received, now that we're expecting a consignment of more vaccines into this country. But remember, all we can still rely on is perfecting the soaps. Please, prevention is better than cure. Even when you get the vaccination, you can still contract COVID-19. So the safest way is perfect the soaps. Have a lovely day. God bless you. I'll leave you with Ruben to take you through the world of sports. Till tomorrow, keep safe, stay safe.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.